Hey everyone, welcome to the show. And if you're wondering what in the world is this show, well, it's sort of the culmination of some of the previous podcasts I've had talking about movies, music, or pop culture, but I really don't like to zero in on anything. My friends and I would sit down and we'd sort of pick a subject and see how far down the rabbit hole we could go. Obviously, sometimes it is going to be a bit of geeking out and nerdy, as you can see, standing in front of some of the collectibles. And if you're just listening on the podcast, I'm standing in front of a bunch of Star Trek and Star Wars toys. Now, remember, when you're an adult, they're collectibles, they're not toys. But yeah, so I'm going to record these on video and do the audio as well and push it to the podcast. So I hope everyone joins in, either on YouTube or on the podcast. But enough about that. Now, in this episode, I am going to geek out a bit and talk about Marvel Endgame. Not so much a critique, because that's been done already, I'm sure, 100 times over, but just talk about overall that movie and sort of what are the next steps of Marvel. And then I'm definitely going to talk about, I'm not sure how I feel about Star Wars coming up, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So just to jump in, talking about Avengers Endgame, goes without saying, it was fantastic. The world over has bought into it. Over $2 billion. It's not about the money, but you do have to mention that because it does, money shows that people went to see it. And the money shows that everyone bought into it. Men and women, boys and girls, families, everyone followed this journey over 10 years and 22 movies. And I think it's a testament to everyone that was involved. The actors, the producers, the writers, everybody. And Kevin Feige, of course, as, the master puppeteer, really taking the role as a showrunner, which is more something for television, because television has series that could go on for years, and someone needs to pull that all together, wrangle all the people, the actual physical, getting all of them involved and on point and all on the same page, as well as the story arc and thinking about where's this headed, where do we want this to end. And movies don't always have that, because movies might be a one-off. With Star Wars, I feel that failed, but I'll talk about that later. They should have had that. There's no cohesion in the Star Wars world. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Marvel and everyone involved with these movies, they really stuck the landing, because that's the other thing. You can build up to all these and develop all the characters in different movies, but then when it comes to the big final ensemble, the giant fight scenes and everyone's together, and just where do all these stories connect and characters, but did they stick the landing? Absolutely. And I think that's why, it's made so much money. Everyone's gone to see it even multiple times. So, talking about it from the geek out point of view, the real comic and Marvel point of view, was everything done right? Look, I don't think there is a right or wrong. Sometimes things for the movie are adapted for the movie, not necessarily has to follow, whatever the comics did exactly. I'm not a huge comic nerd, to be honest. I'm more of a huge movie fan, so I'm fine with what they've done. And as far as, how it ended with Iron Man, I think that was very fitting and very deserving. Not saying that he's the only character, but you have to admit, Robert Downey Jr., I mean, he is Iron Man. He is Tony Stark. It's as simple as that. I couldn't picture anybody else doing it at this point, because he so bought into it himself that we believed him as Tony Stark. And so it is fitting that, he is sort of the ending of it. He's the one that snapped his finger. He's the one who ended Thanos. Obviously, it was a group effort, but really, I think it was fitting that it began with him and it ended with him. And Jon Favreau, he should be, applauded as well. He should be given definitely a special award, both him and Robert Downey Jr. for for really, hitting the ground running with Iron Man, because that could have gone either way. Who's Iron Man? Back at that time, Batman and Superman. Yeah, sure, these are all known, but Iron Man? What an amazing, interesting way of kicking off this universe where people were focused on Spider-Man or something like that, but it worked brilliantly. I think it's fantastic. I'll put a link to this video, but there's a YouTube video where it shows Robert Downey Jr. Getting ready for his screen test of Iron Man. And, you would think with someone like him that he'd be like a prima donna and very much up himself, but he wasn't, especially with getting that role. He really prepared himself for it because he wanted it. He wanted to champion that part. And, he didn't just show up and casually say, oh, yeah, I'll probably get it. He thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to go there and I'm going to perceive that I am Tony Stark. That's how he said he did it. He said he pulled up in his average car, but in his mind he was pulling up in a Tony Stark limo, and he already, personified Tony Stark from day one. And that's it. I guess that came through on the screen tests, and they said, well, this is it. Then it showed them making the molds and fitting him for the suit, and he's so into it. It's genuine, you know what I mean? And that's how he explains it. He's a movie lover too. He's a movie fan. And look, different actors have different methods, but I think it's always good when the actor is also a fan themselves of cinema, of that art. And they know how the fans and the audience are going to buy into it. And he says he does too. He's a sucker. He'll see something sad and he buys into it. He was talking about he could even see a movie like Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. Awesome B-movie horror movie. But he buys into it, and the sad parts and the horror parts, you cry, you laugh. And that's a true movie fan who can buy into something like that. So Robert Downey Jr. definitely shaping that role and helping kick off that universe. So I think it was fitting that they sent him off like that in style. Everyone else, amazing. Chris Hemsworth as the Lebowski Thor. Look, some people weren't into that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was just moving forward with sort of that Guardians of the Galaxy humor, or Taika Waititi, the director of Ragnarok, which was hilarious. As he was doing the voice for Korg, Steen Sealer right there. Korg is a crack up. Hey, bro, over here, the Rock waving at you. That is so funny. So to continue that kind of humor, nothing wrong with that, That's the other thing. All the different directors who directed all these movies brought their own flavor to it, but the story arc always stayed, thanks to Kevin Feige. And that's the important part, that someone still brought them all into line. They didn't send them off on their own and said, yeah, just run with it, do anything you want. There's a degree where they would still say, you need to work within this story. And so those sort of humorous parts, I don't mind that. That's still fitting to the whole universe. And it's also sort of taking that character a bit further, Thor's done all the action parts, so maybe they thought, and Chris Hemsworth bought into this, that he was really affected by that. He thought he let everyone down, by not killing Thanos, and half of the universe, all living creatures, died. Okay, that's something you might feel bad about. That might weigh heavy on your shoulders. So he hung around, drank a lot of beer, got fat, and played PlayStation with Korg. That's kind of funny, and that's actually fitting. If it were a drama, and it were played a little bit more, real, serious, which it was, you'd buy into it as the character who was depressed and who was really affected by, a post-traumatic stress kind of situation. So in this case, it was Thor letting himself go and having a big old beer belly. I think that's fantastic. That's quite realistic. And yeah, sure, it got a laugh. All the characters, I think, really got fantastic character development, and in the movie they all ended up with something good. Again, Tony Stark, he was more than likely going to end up, like he did anyway, as the hero, and sometimes the hero has to sacrifice himself. But for a time, he got to have a family, had his daughter for a time with Pepper. I think that was cool. And I think with a lot of the other characters, they really came together, and they all seem like they work well together on screen. And you can see that off screen in some of the behind the scenes videos. They're great. The other interesting relationship, Hawkeye and Black Widow, obviously that's been going since they were both first introduced. They have that connection. They work together, and I think it was really, that was one of the moments. That was one of the man cry moments where they were deciding who was going to sacrifice themselves for the Soul Stone, and that was fitting for two people, a man and a woman, who have a deep friendship. Obviously, he had a family and a wife, and for her, it's a bit different. Her past probably doesn't allow her to have the most successful and normal relationships, but that's probably about the closest she came, was with Hawkeye. And no, I think that was a really good emotional scene. And that's another thing, talking about the movie as a movie, not a comic book movie or Marvel movie, just as a movie. Would it be an Oscar contender? Why not? I think so, absolutely. Black Panther got a nomination, so floodgates open now. I think when you look at it, there are some fantastic actors here and some amazing work. Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr., Don Cheadle, he's actually amazing. I like Anthony Mackie as Falcon, he's great. And would it be an Oscar contender? Why not? I think so. I think if the Academy was honest and realistic about what an actual good movie is, yes, it would be. Do I think they are? No, because it's not like an MTV award where it's a popular vote, where it's just fans voting. It's a board of whatever, people sitting on this Academy board who, I don't know if they're bribed, I don't know what the deal is, but it's always some super artsy, poignant, sad drama movie that wins, or just something that appeals to a really, really particular kind of crowd. And they usually do shy away from popular pop culture, popcorn movies, which, I'm sorry, that's why people go to the movies, especially nowadays. Again, every type of movie has merit and has its place in cinema, but yeah, I say why not? I say it's time. I think the work they've done over all these years, a decade's worth, just as a whole, and if it's only the one movie that gets an award, well, so be it. I would say that award should reflect all of their work. For some of these people, it's been their job for a decade. That's a life's work. That's amazing. So, Oscar contender for one of the actors, actresses, or the movie itself, whatever, director, producer, it should get something huge. It deserves that. So that they can, look, they already know. The fans have already told them. The world has told them, and they've been paid more than enough as far as accolades and money. But still, it's nice to be recognized in that way. So, but yeah, as a whole, fantastic. Captain America, he finally got what he wanted. He got to live his life. Got to be an old man, grow old with the woman he loves. I don't mind that kind of story arc. When you're already playing around with the whole time travel thing, why not? Why not throw that in? And speaking of time travel, that is also hilarious how they sort of nodded to all the time travel movies, saying, well, how can we fix this? We're going to go back in time and we'll just kill Thanos and that fixes everything. And they're being cautioned that that's not how it works by Tony Stark, that it's just going to make everything worse. But I think Don Cheadle as the Falcon was saying. So you're saying all those movies lied? Terminator, Back to the Future, every single time travel movie, Bill and Ted's. You're saying they're all crap. And they're like, yeah, they're all crap. That's not how it works. I thought that was funny. And also, it was good that they didn't use just that same sort of story that those movies have used, where you go back in time and you can change your future on just that one timeline. That's when they came up with the time heist. And Paul Rudd, who, again, is fantastic. Paul Rudd comes out of nowhere, does Ant-Man, and Ant-Man turns out to be a pivotal role in this whole universe and in Endgame. That's fantastic. Only the Marvel guys could pull that off, such a small character. And Paul Rudd, obviously, he's fantastic. He made it come to life just as much as Robert Downey Jr. made Iron Man come to life and have us believe it. But yeah, he comes up with the time heist. I think that was funny. Whereby, so they're going to go and borrow the stones rather than just take them from that time. Because they have to go back in time again, obviously, and Captain America is the one who has to do that and put them back so that that timeline is correct. Otherwise, you get like a split timeline, and then you start to lose your mind, and then you're like Doc trying to explain to Marty, how all these alternate timelines come about. But yeah, all the time travel stuff aside, I think it was interesting how they put a bit of a twist on it rather than just the old go back in time and kill the guy and then you fix everything. And that also means that if we believe that what we're watching is real and we're part of it, then that time that they're in now still exists. Which means we lost Tony Stark, but his daughter's still alive. So, everyone was brought back, but also anything that's happened since then is still continuing. That's probably better than just having reset it, because when you reset a timeline, you may make it worse, which means other people may not exist. His daughter would not have existed. So they kind of did an interesting, best of both worlds situation. So that was great. So again, the writers, everyone involved with coming up with that story idea was fantastic. So yes, obviously, Endgame was great. It's still going. Probably going to make more money. I still don't think it's going to catch Avatar. I still don't get why Avatar is the highest grossing movie. I liked Avatar, but I don't know if it was just when it came out or the timing. I don't know how that one became so big. But, hey, James Cameron, you can't knock that. From Terminator to Titanic to Avatar, not going to knock anything James Cameron's done. But yeah, next steps from Marvel. They're being a bit tight-lipped, but they have the 5-year plan, they call it. Look, I'm a bit sad in general because I don't know what to do. I'm looking forward to movies usually every year. What's going to come next, even if the whole year stinks, which in the past few years, I'm sorry, the movies just stink. They've been crap. And it's always, I could look forward to a Marvel movie at least. Now I'm sort of sad that this phase has ended. I know Spider-Man is going to come out. I really like those, I do, but I still feel like, where are those going to go now? And there'll definitely be another Guardians of the Galaxy. That's obviously already being done. Obviously Thor will be part of that. That is going to be interesting. So it's that sort of, and James Gunn is back on board with that sort of Guardians of the Galaxy cheeky tone. And Chris Hemsworth will fit right in with that, I think. I'm looking forward to that one. Black Widow, they've talked about that a bit. Maybe Scarlett Johansson's on board to do a prequel kind of thing. Wouldn't mind that. She obviously does have a very interesting backstory. The whole Russian spy. She's like a Red Sparrow, not to squeeze in on Jennifer Lawrence territory, but that's the idea of what she is. She's a super spy who was plucked as a child and taught to be this assassin. That's already a cool story right there. I don't know how X-Men and all that fit into it, but I'm just curious to see what they do and if everyone will still be into it or if everyone's just kind of done now. I mean, sometimes that happens. I loved all of them. Loved every movie and Endgame. But maybe we're just kind of not tired, but if they're done with it, then we're done with that part too. If those characters are going to go away. But no, we'll see if the fans return. Possibly. I don't think they've made a misstep yet. Not a single one, which is, knock on wood, that's amazing. But yeah, I always thought Spider-Man was an interesting one, an interesting side story. Sony, they were offered the rights to the entire Marvel universe, all the characters. I think it was about 25 million. They could have bought the whole catalog, but they basically didn't understand where the other characters could be developed. They said, well, we don't know who any of these are. Who's Iron Man? Who's Ant-Man? Spider-Man. We know Spider-Man is. We want Spider-Man. So, yeah, they got Spider-Man for less money, and it served them well. But it is kind of funny. What if Sony bought the rights to Marvel way back then and not just Spider-Man? Well, the world might look different, and maybe Sony Pictures would own the entire world as opposed to Disney owning everything. 20th Century Fox. Oh my God. Sorry, don't mean to rant, but I can't believe they now own 20th Century Fox, so all that movie catalog. So Disney, they're becoming the new empire. Simple as that. They are the empire. Because when there's no competition and you have a monopoly on everything, you can do what you want, and that's it. So anyway, can't knock Disney. They're doing the right thing mostly, but not with Star Wars. So now that we're into talking about Disney and the Empire, now we're talking about Star Wars. So Star Wars, that's very near and dear to my heart. That's my childhood. The original Star Wars trilogy. And what they've done with it so far, not completely impressed. And as I talked about earlier, Disney didn't really get someone to ensure that there was a cohesive story arc. And you're thinking, well, did Lucas have one? Well, he kind of did. That's why the original movies obviously all fit together, with different directors, mind you. He turned over Empire. He didn't direct that, but obviously he was there to ensure that it was on the right track, that the story aligned. And with the prequels, look, I'll be honest, I've watched the prequels again recently. They're not terrible in that they still feel like Star Wars, if that makes sense. When I watch the prequels, when I see it, when I hear it, the tone, you know what? I immediately think, well, this is a Star Wars movie. Absolutely. This is the Star Wars universe. So from that point of view, whether they were the perfect story, and Hayden Christensen, don't hate him, but yeah, I know he's not the best, but as a whole, they're not bad to watch. I encourage everyone, to give him a rewatch. Try to ignore Jar Jar. Cut him out if you want. Just pretend he's some drug delusion or something, and then focus on the other parts of the movie. I mean, just the lightsaber scene in Phantom Menace. Honestly, that one's actually fantastic. You can ignore the whole pod race and it's like a video game, but those scenes at the end are really fantastic. And anyway, I say have a rewatch and consider those again, because they still felt more like Star Wars. But the new ones, and this isn't me just talking as some old man Gen X, it's not like the old Star Wars. Where's that? I'm not saying I want them to just do the same story, because that's been done. We're not saying just keep doing the Skywalker story, because that has been done. Of course it has to come to an end. I get that. But if you're going to bring everyone back like they did, why waste it? Mark Hamill himself, he put that picture up. There was a photo a fan did, a fantastic photoshopped photo of Luke and Leia and Han and Lando. They're all in the Millennium Falcon in the cockpit all together. It's a fantastic picture. It never happened, you know what I mean? Even on the set, even behind the scenes. That moment never happened. And he tweeted that photo with missed opportunities. He got raked over the coals over it by all the social justice warriors or whatever. It's funny how people can turn on you. But from his point of view, it just wouldn't have been bad to have just seen that for a moment or something. Because, yeah, it is nostalgic. Of course, we're not dead. We're all still alive. All the, boys and girls are now men and women from the original Star Wars trilogy. So, yeah, we would like to have seen that. Couldn't hurt to have appealed to us as well as the next generation. But anyway, as far as moving on, I still don't think they're doing a good job because there's no connection. J.J. Abrams, I think he made a great fanboy nostalgia movie. Nothing wrong with that one. Rogue One, you know what? I didn't mind that. But again, that's completely new characters happening in the same timeline. And I'm fine with that because you're not messing with the original characters. You're not messing with the people that have already been developed in my mind by the actors. Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. Look, it's too late. They defined those roles. So if you have brand new characters in the same universe, I don't mind that at all. You know what? Rogue One had a very Star Wars feeling. That was directed quite well. The end scene with Darth Vader, everyone went apeshit. Of course they did, because it was like you're watching Star Wars again, but it's something happening on the side. Instead of looking forward, you look to the left. Oh, this is happening. That's awesome. So from 1977 to here, all I had to do was turn over and look to the left, and this is going on. So it's just like seeing it from another point of view, and that's awesome. And it was its own story, and it was quite good. But then you get into Solo, and now you're pushing it. I'm sorry. I hate to go on a rant here again, but I'm with Solo. Sometimes an actor does define the character. Robert Downey Jr., yeah, he is Tony Stark. And I'm sorry, Han Solo, that's Harrison Ford. Just his mannerisms, everything about him. So if you're going to do a prequel, you're already on shaky ground. And with Solo, that was a tough one. That was a tough time and a tough sell for a lot of the fans. But, and look, of course everyone wants to see that. You want to see the buddy space movie again. You want to see Chewbacca. Everyone loves Chewbacca. And when you're growing up from the original ones, and there's always books and extra stories, the story was Han Solo and Chewbacca, and this was before Solo, before the end of the new movies. The idea was Wookiees, they're very loyal, and at some point, Han Solo saved Chewbacca's life. Simple as that. That's all that you knew. That was like a legend. And everyone knew about that if you're a super fan, a super nerd. And that's kind of cool. That's so sweet. Oh, he saved his life, and then he was his loyal companion, sidekick for life. That's awesome. And then all the stories you heard about Han and, what he used to do. Oh, the Kessel Run. Oh, he's awesome. He's the best pilot. For me, you know what it is? Sometimes the story and the legend of that story told around the campfire of, this gunslinger, this space cowboy and his sidekick. That's more exciting and pulls you in more than sometimes actually seeing it. Because let's face it, sometimes, reality doesn't fit fantasy, or a legend doesn't always live up to the legend. So sometimes when you define it specifically, you're there to capture it. The moment was more fun to talk about around the campfire. You know what I mean? Rather than seeing it. We didn't have to see it. We get it. We already knew he was a scoundrel. He was a smuggler who had deep inside a heart of gold. And he actually was a good guy. That's all you need to do, is say it, and you know it. So anyway, when you try to make a prequel and you have to pick a different actor and he has to portray a character that's been so already set in motion, that's a tough one. So, and then I've already done a podcast on The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. I'm not even going to go there, but that just shows you that nobody was in control of where this story's going, because they said, here, we'll let someone else direct it. And Marvel did that, different directors, but someone was there to keep them in line. Someone was there to control the story. And with the Star Wars universe, they let him go way off kilter, way too far. He went off the farm big time because he just started to push the story in his direction. And now they've given it back to J.J. Abrams. I'm watching the trailer, and I feel like this looks like a huge freaking retcon, which means, they're trying to reset it. Trying to reset it back to everything in the Star Wars universe. So the stories line up and the characters line up. And why wouldn't you just have had it? When there's this much money involved, I can't believe there's no one sitting down at the table and just having just one meeting, just a quick meeting. Hey guys, where do you want this to end up? What are you thinking about? Hey, let's storyboard this. What the hell? Let's maybe just draw this out and do a user journey on a map. I mean, with Marvel, the whole wall, you can look them up. There's all these storyboards because they already decided with all these movies, we'll take a chance on different directors, but this is where it's headed regardless. They can go off a little bit on a tangent, but they can't go too far. And with Star Wars, they said JJ, well, here, he took it. He did fine. He did a fanboy movie. And then Rian Johnson took it way off. I'm not going to say it's good or bad right now, just off as opposed to where it's going now. So I would just have rather they put more thought into it. You know what I mean? And so the whole rise of Skywalker, I also feel like they're going to try and reset things so that the fans who are a bit confused or upset, when they see this one, they'll go, oh, I see. Okay, that's why you did that. Even though, don't let them fool you. They didn't already have this plan. They didn't go, oh, yeah, we had this planned all along. I'll tell you right now, what they're doing is trying to fix it. And that's the worst. But, hey, it might work out. I hope it does, because I love Star Wars. Now, what I did want to talk about is Rey, obviously the main character in the new Star Wars movies. And what they're saying is Rey is a bit of a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue can be a male character as well. But it's a character in a story that pretty much can do no wrong. Everything comes easy to them. And that's no fun sometimes. It's hard to empathize with that. Sometimes it's based on the writer or the director themselves. But I suppose with that, it's kind of boring. It's just everything comes easy to them. Something like on the flip side, someone like Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker always struggling with everything, struggling with the Force and the dark side and his past, his future, his father. He's just always torn, and nothing ever really, I don't think, came easily to him. It was always an uphill battle, and that's something you can connect to a little bit better as a human, regardless if it's a story, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever. The whole reason we go to the movies, everyone finds a bit of something to relate to. That's what you do. And so with Luke, he's learning here and there from Obi-Wan and from Yoda, and I don't think he ever really, to be honest, mastered the Force completely anyway. He shut it out and pushed it away, obviously trying to avoid the dark side, but also avoided the full power of the Force in any case. And let's be honest, I mean, how many lessons did he really have or time to develop it? He was with Yoda on Dagobah, 5 days tops, a week at the outside? And let's be honest, it was probably like 3 days. I mean, he wasn't there very long, and he had to split. He's off to save Han and Leia in Cloud City. So he didn't get a huge amount of instruction, and he didn't do very well all the time. But with Rey, she just naturally has a way with the Force. And if you've watched the trailer, which I hope you have, otherwise you shouldn't be watching or listening to this, at the end of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, we hear what is obviously Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine. No idea how he's alive anyway. I don't know if he's frozen somewhere, or it's just his spirit, or whatever. He's transferred, or he's from the beyond, like obviously, they learn to do as part of the Force. That's how they speak to each other, obviously. Obi-Wan, Yoda, they can all, speak to the living from the beyond. That's part of what you can do. So he's part of that story now, and what they're thinking, what I think, is possibly in this retcon and trying to make Rey seem like all of what she did made sense. It may be something to where she was put there on purpose, like an evil plot. And wrap your head around this. Maybe she's like a clone of Skywalker, not necessarily, something he knew about. Maybe cloned from his chopped off hand or something, Luke's hand. Something like that, to where she does have Skywalker blood, so the Force is strong. And the reason she knows everything so well up front, maybe she's been guided by the dark side, guided by Palpatine somehow. All of this knowledge is instilled in her unconsciously, waiting to be awakened at the right time. She's some sort of evil plot to be on the inside or something. And that this has been going all along since the original Star Wars trilogy. And that's how they might say, well, there you go. We had a plan all along, and we're going to wrap it up like this, and it all connects. That's fine and all, but I still feel like that's an afterthought, and it's lazy. But that's just my thoughts. Again, I'll keep an open mind. Of course, I'll be there. I'm going to see it like everyone else. But I just feel like, it's more of an afterthought. No one really sat down and just talked about this like you should with a movie franchise this big. You really need to have this discussion on where it's headed, rather than just, have let each director go off on a tangent on their own. JJ and Rian Johnson, and now JJ again. It's like it's a battle, and Abrams is trying to bring it back in. That's really not the right way to treat such a huge franchise. Someone, whether it's Lucas or someone Lucas has nominated, or someone who's close to the story and has decided how they all connect. But anyway, that seems to be something they might be doing, so that it explains why she's so good at everything. And then maybe we forgive her, or I don't know. Anyway, we'll see how we go. I'm not quite sure how that one's going to turn out. But from there, obviously, they'll still continue. They'll make other Star Wars movies, side movies, prequels, The Mandalorian, things like that. That's going to be the TV show, and that's Jon Favreau. So that's cool. I won't mind having a look at that. Like I say, if they're completely new characters and new planets within that universe, it's okay. You can play around with that. It's just the characters that have a connection to the original trilogy. You just need to tread lightly and be respectful. But I've already done a podcast on that, so I won't go into that too deeply. But it's just, if you're going to mess with those characters, they really should connect, because, new fans or old fans, if you've watched the originals, you're going to notice, you're going to realize that something just doesn't feel right. It doesn't connect. But, so that's Star Wars. We'll see how we go. It'll be wrapping up the Skywalker story. I get that storyline will end, and that's fine. It should, and then pass it on to new characters and new fans, and that's fine. But to swing it back to Avengers and Marvel real quick, with Avengers Endgame, I did want to say I thought it was hilarious seeing the Hulk sort of half hulked out. Some people didn't like that. I didn't mind. I thought it was kind of funny to see him as Bruce Banner, Bruce Banner's brain and personality, but with the Hulk's body, making jokes, Hulk out, and taking selfies with the kid fans. That was funny. That was actually quite good. So just the logistics of it seem a bit weird, because the Hulk seems to be in different proportions in every single movie. The Hulk movies, the Avengers movies, sometimes he's so big he would never even fit in a car, let alone sit on a seat in a restaurant. And in this one, he's actually sitting and, having a meal. It seems like he'd be a lot more massive. But anyway, that's getting super nerdy and picky. But yeah, I thought that was funny. And sort of the passing of the baton with Captain America and Falcon, I actually think that was fitting. Again, the comics aside, whatever different ways whoever took over Captain America, I think in this particular, in the movie series, I think that was quite fitting. Anthony Mackie I like him. He's a cool actor. I think he would fit that part well. You think, well, shouldn't it be his best friend Bucky? Well, right now I feel like, that guy's still got problems. The Winter Soldier, he's got a lot to go through still. He's got some things to work out. He's got some therapy to do. He's not quite ready to be Captain America. But the Falcon, he was Captain America's connection to the current world, where he lives now, in our world. And they became close friends. And yeah, he's someone you could see who would be very loyal and would take that on with great respect and do it well. So yeah, I think that was quite fitting that he sort of passed the shield saying, maybe this is something you want to try out. Again, I don't know if they do anything with that, but it was very fitting in the movie, I think. But that about wraps this one up. It won't just be me all the time. You might not want to just sit here and listen to me rant on about anything. Hopefully I'll have some guests and some friends on, and we will just pick a subject and tear it apart. So be sure to follow us on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And there you go. Join us again. See you next time. Bye.